Pippa, I would love to welcome you to the Women's Power Hour show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, Pippa, you are the founder of Buck's Breakfast, and of course that is part of your journey. But I think just to kickstart for the listeners, can you just share a little bit about your journey into the world of media?
Oh, goodness me. So I have done all sorts of things through my career. I didn't go to university, and this takes me back to being a schoolgirl. And my mother said to me, as long as you can type, you'll always be able to earn money. And it was okay for her because she became legal specialist secretary, and she had a great career doing that. And I fell into temping. And I'd do it in the school holidays, and it gave me a great grounding, actually, because I worked in lots and lots of different companies, and that moved into permanent roles. And I worked in IT at the time of the .com boom, and then I worked in property at the time of the buy-to-let boom. And somewhere along the way, I worked for Sony, and I was selling tape products and working with television companies and studios and so on. Anyway, so we parked that. Years later, I got made redundant just before I turned 40. And I was dropped from a great height, and I had no idea it was coming, and it was a real shock to the system. And I swore to myself at that point, I'm never going to be at somebody else's mercy ever again. I'm going to be my own boss from now on. And so I took the time to look back over all the different things I'd done and pick out what the highlights were. And the thing that kept coming back was these experiences of being in TV studios and sound studios. There was just something about that sector that really excited me. And so I was looking for ways to get into television and training courses and so on, and wasn't getting much luck. And then I stumbled across a radio production course, and you had to be either over 40, you had to be a woman, or from an ethnic minority background. So I qualified because I'd turned 40, and I went and did this training course, which was in Southall in West London, with all of these wonderful Punjabi ladies in a community radio station. But it was a very high standard training course, and my life changed.
Wow.
My life changed. And from that, I was applying for lots of different radio jobs, and I got picked up by Asian Star, which is a great station based in Slough. And I thought, well, they're not going to hire me. They did, and I did the mid-morning program there for a few years, and it's all stemmed from there.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. And I so relate to the redundancy story, because I too was made redundant at 38.
Right.
And it's definitely that wake-up call. For me,
yeah.
I look back and I think, well, what a wake-up call that was. And like you, kind of made a commitment from that point onwards. I didn't want to work for anybody else. I needed to find my own way, whatever that looked like. Yeah. That's I'm sure lots of other people can relate to that. They kind of hear that message. So that's amazing. So you did this course, you got picked up by this radio station, and obviously your career grew and blossomed from there. So can you just tell us about I know that you were working for quite an award-winning station, actually, up until quite recently. Can you just tell us a bit about that transition into there and how that panned out?
Okay, so somewhere along the line, I was working at Asian Star, and then aged 43, I discovered I was expecting a baby, the first time in my life. And so that was about to make my life change again. Long story short, very sadly, I lost that baby quite late on into the pregnancy. And I wasn't able to go back to Asian Star because everything had moved on a bit. And I got introduced to some people doing hospital radio in High Wycombe.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'd like to keep my hand in, so I'll go along to the hospital radio. And at about the same time, the Health Trust decided that they were going to take away the bedside units that the patients would use to listen to the hospital radio. So it was all up in the air. And then one of my colleagues said, I know what we'll do. We'll start a community station of our own for the town of High Wycombe and not just the people in hospital. And so, of course, I was right there. Yeah, I'm in for this. I'm going to be part of this. And so I was one of the 4 original founders of Wycombe Sound. One of them dropped away quite quickly, so there were 3 of us who formed that business. And we got a small team together, and I was there from the back of the envelope moment right the way through. I was program director, so I was responsible for I was running it. Let's not mess about. I was running it day to day with a team, but the whole winning of the license, the doing the RSLs, which are the short-term stations that prove that you can do it. We won the license. We had to fundraise. We had to find a team and put the schedule together, design the programs, design the sound through the shape of the day, promote it, find guests, everything.
Wow.
And over 7 years I worked with that team, just about 4 years of it with a full term license. And, we won lots of awards along the way. We won Station of the Year when we'd only been on air 8 months.
That's amazing.
And then the highlight really was the beginning of last year, 2020, when we thought, well, we'll apply for the ARIAs, which are like the Oscars of the radio industry.
Yes.
Alongside all of those big star names. And we got shortlisted for Local Station of the Year. And we didn't win it, but hey, to be shortlisted against 3 BBC regions and 2 commercial stations was a huge achievement for the whole team, and everybody at Wycombe Sound had a part in that. And I'm so proud, really proud.
Yeah.
It was a lot of hard work, a lot of ups and downs along the way. But there's a great team at that station, and I'm so proud of that.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful. I mean, having that early success and then obviously going on to have those other successes as well. And it also, for me, it reinforces the importance of sticking with the journey and taking the bumps in the road, because once you kind of build that solid team as you had done, good things will happen. They do come out. I
think it's really important to have a vision. You've got to have not necessarily a goal, a financial goal or a prize-winning goal or whatever, but just have a bigger picture of what you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And I think actually it's the difference between being a leader and being a manager, because being a manager is all about the ticking of boxes and day-to-day stuff, and that is not me at all. Anybody will tell you when it comes to detail, I am not your girl. But when it comes to actually saying, right, this is what we're going for, come with me, help me, help us, this team, achieve this, then that's where I'm at my happiest, I think. And it's worked so far.
Well, what an excellent kickstart to this interview with Pippa. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. You had a big career change in 2020. So you had that great start to the year, being selected for that award, but then things changed. I know 2020 was a year of change for the vast majority, if not all of us, in some shape or form. So can you just share a bit about what that was for you?
When the pandemic first reared its ugly head, I was one of the first within our team to say, right, well, we better just lock down. Let's just send everybody home. Let's stop coming into the studio. Let's fix things up remotely. And some of my colleagues in the top team were saying, oh, no, we should keep going as long as we can. And so that day when Boris said, that's it, you've got to work from home where at all possible, was, I was so relieved because we were all terrified at the time. And just picture a station where you've got, I don't know, 60, 80 people coming and going each week. At least 20, 30, 40 people going in and out and using the same studio each week. And all the things you're touching in that studio. We're sharing a kitchen, we're sharing, other facilities.
Yes. And
to have the responsibility for that, especially when you're not being paid an awful lot, because it's sort of majority of it is voluntary, and these are all volunteers, and some of them are old, some of them are vulnerable. It's a huge responsibility to carry. So the minute the government said you've got to work from home, I was like, yes,
thank you.
This is great. Because we had a great technical team, they were able to get everybody working remotely really quickly.
Brilliant.
And it was great. And, we found benefits, we found upsides in it. So one quick example, there was one chap who was in a number of them actually, in their 70s, late 70s. And they would come in to the studio once a week and pre-record a program which would be broadcast later the following day, but quite late at night.
Yes.
And that was for a number of reasons. We didn't want them to have the responsibility of locking up the building and going out into the car park in the dark and all of those things. Yeah. The beauty of them being able to work from home is that suddenly they can do their programs live.
Yes.
Because they're in the security of their own home. They can connect, they can take control of the studio remotely, they've got all of the social media there. If somebody writes in, they can react there and then. And so actually, for a moment, we found we were doing more hours live than we had been doing pre-lockdown.
Yeah.
So, there were certainly upsides. At the same time, I'm trying to think ahead. What's going to happen when we come out of this? The high street is really suffering. The high street needs some oomph.
Yes.
We need to raise our profile so that we can be central to the town's recovery. And so I was talking to some people about moving us from the building where we were, which was like 2 streets away from the centre of town, right into the heart of the town centre. And the rest of the top team weren't quite on the same page with me. I'm a risk taker.
Yes.
I'd secured the funding to make this move and to fund some other things as well. And, I saw a huge opportunity, and some of the team were on it with me, and some of them had reservations, and they were quite realistic reservations, and they were quite right to flag those. But for me, it was, here we are, we're locked down, I'm going to have another Christmas, and, and it was starting to bring me down a bit. And I was thinking, well, where can we go next? We've had this shortlisting for the ARIA, and I was just starting to think, I'm not sure everybody's got the same vision as me anymore. And then it all came to a head. I don't know. There were a few things that happened in one particular week. And it was the week of the August bank holiday. And I went and did an outside broadcast. And I won't say where it was, but it was an outside broadcast. And it was like a community sort of fair type thing. There were lots of stalls. But everything was marked out. You have to go round this thing on a one-way system. Everybody's wearing masks, and I just felt so flat after that. I actually made the decision there and then, and I went back to the studio and I packed up all my stuff, cleared out my desk, carried a couple of cardboard boxes down to the car.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a real moment, and I sent them an email the following day saying, after 7 years, I think the team is there in place. They're perfectly capable of running the station. I need to go and do something different. And I said, I don't wish to discuss it. And do you know what? No, none of them got in touch.
You're
None of them said,
joking.
"Oh no, you say you don't want to discuss it, but we want to discuss it." In fact, I did have an email. I had an email and I said, "Look, I'm not ready to talk about this at the moment." Left it a couple of weeks, and then I went back to this person and said, "I'm ready to talk about it now." And he said, "Oh no, I'm really busy doing the VAT return." So I thought, okay. So that's how it's been left. That's how it's been left. But do you know what, Yvonne? Sometimes, you can do these things all of a sudden on a whim and then regret them. And I'd walked away from the breakfast show as well as everything else,
yes.
which I loved. I loved it. I lived to do the breakfast show. I loved it. And it was a popular programme. And for the first few mornings after that, I cried every morning thinking, what on earth have I done? But actually, if you have done the right thing, you will find that you're at peace with it. And I'm totally, totally at peace with it. I do not regret for one moment leaving that organisation. But I don't want to do them any harm. You know, I'm very, very proud of everything that we achieved together. They're going to go on and do more great things. They're on their own path now, doing whatever they want to do next. And I'm on my own path, doing what I want to do next. And so I'm totally at peace with it, totally cool with it. Although it was a bit bumpy at the time.
Yes, yeah. As you would expect. I mean, I think, you were there for 7 years. You had committed so much of yourself to it. So if you had walked away with no feeling, that would have been a bit weird. So it's only right that you felt the things that you did. I mean, I think it's a shame that people weren't willing to communicate with you at the time when you wanted to. But, as you said, you have to move on, they move on, you move on.
Yeah.
And I know that you've moved on very beautifully and gracefully, with a bit of encouragement from your husband, if I remember correctly. So
the marvellous Mr. M.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's quite a funny story because I told him what I'd done, and I think he went into shock, and he basically said, can't you go back? I think you were good at it. I liked listening to you in the morning. I liked it to hear you talking about all of our pets and our animals and so on. And I said, look, I've got all the stuff in the studio, at my own studio at home.
Yes.
I could do a breakfast show. I could do a breakfast show just for you.
Oh.
And we laughed about that, but that planted the seed. And it was, it was something I'd sort of had in mind for a while, but that's really what cemented it for me. Actually, there is nothing to stop me starting something new. We're still in lockdown. I can do this from home, from my home studio. All I need is the internet. I've got everything else I need. And that's how it was born. And I could have started a whole new station. I did consider that. Mm-hmm. But what I had just left had consumed me.
Yes.
It had totally dominated my life. Yeah. And there were changes in the whole landscape of radio at that time as well. Lots of teams, very sadly, had been made redundant, and they were starting to pop up with new online stations. And this is what I was thinking of doing. Should I start a new station? But, I like to be a pioneer, and I like to try something new. I like to be out in front of everybody else.
Yes.
And I thought, why should I have to start a whole new station? The biggest show of the day in any station, most stations, is the breakfast show. Let's just do a breakfast show. Because at 10 o'clock, lots of people then, they tune to Radio 4 for Women's Hour, which is a fantastic programme.
Yes.
They might tune to Radio 2 for Popmaster. That's a fantastic programme. They might tune to a talk station to listen to the politics of the day. They might be getting down to work and just want gentle classical music on in the background. Why should I try and compete with these icons of radio, Yeah. And so I thought, there are other local stations to turn to at 10 o'clock. So let's try something new and just do a standalone, live-streamed, Monday to Friday breakfast show. Let's just try and capture the biggest audience of the day and offer them something that nobody else is offering. And that's what we did.
Oh my goodness, I am loving that, Pippa. And, you know, if you are in any doubt about making a move, sometimes you just have to make that move. Trust your instinct and your gut and go with it.
Bucks Breakfast. This is your baby, this station that you have created, this standalone. So just tell us a little bit about that. How's it going? How long has it been going now, and how is it going? How is it growing?
Well, the first thing that happened was a colleague of mine called me up one day and said, "Hey, how are you doing? What are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing this." And I described the concept to him, and he said, "Well, that sounds like a double header to me." And he said, I'd be very happy to come and join you. I'll do the news and the traffic, and, you know, so then we have two voices on this programme. And this colleague of mine has a fantastic radio voice. He had a long career involving time at the BBC, and he does Voice of God for award ceremonies. You know, he's an expert in all the production elements. Brilliant. And so, you know, there was a lot that he could bring to the table, and we've worked together for a decade, so we know each other really well. So that was the first thing that happened. But, you know, we didn't want to directly compete face-to-face with Wickham Sound. Yeah. We wanted to offer an alternative breakfast show. So we've gone for a slightly older audience. There's a lot more speech. We have interviews in the programme. The music is all grown up, so we're not doing all the top 10 hits. You know, I don't know what the top 10 is. I wouldn't know the number one artist if he knocked on my front door with a pizza in his hand. So, you know, when you think of our listeners, they're people like me. They're people like me and Jonathan. We are a bit older. You know, the kids have flown the nest. We might be looking towards retirement. We might equally have kids at university and older parents. So we're in the middle. We're being squeezed from that point of view. But what we're not doing is pandering to the kids on the school run with the latest pop tunes. Yeah. But, you know, we have new stuff, but it's grown up.
Yes,
does that make sense?
I totally get you. Yes, I hear you.
And we're trying to appeal, or we are appealing to an audience who has a bit of spare cash to spend on nice things. So we're talking to restaurateurs, you know, chefs. So it's good food and drink. It's independent retail. It's arts and entertainment. It's the great outdoors. You know, these are the sorts of topics that we're covering on the programme. Together with local news, all the interviews have a local element to them.
Yes.
But it's not competing directly with anybody else.
Excellent. And I kind of like that you've targeted that specific audience and really meeting their needs and wants, and engaging them. So I think that's brilliant. Brilliant. I love it. Now, that's quite a big change to have made. So to have left the station, started your own for this breakfast show, how has that impacted the quality of life, your quality of life?
It's been amazing. So before, in my old life, I started out actually doing a mid-morning programme over at Wickham, and then I moved on and did the breakfast show for a couple of years. And so I'd be getting up really early, driving over, you know, to 10 miles away, unlocking the building, getting into the studio, doing the breakfast show live from 7 till 10, by which time colleagues are arriving, you know, the business of the day is getting underway, and that's when the work would start.
Yes.
So it would be, you know, meetings and all sorts of stuff. Now, I still get up early, but I don't have to drive anywhere. I just roll out of bed and go into the studio. I'm live from 7 till 10. And then at 10 o'clock, I do a few bits of admin. I upload all the interviews that I've done. I might have a couple of phone calls to make. But basically, the rest of the day is my own. And I can decide, do I want to spend the day investing in and growing this station and finding new guests and doing promotion and all of that? Or do I want to go and plant some pretty flowers in the garden?
Yeah.
Do I want to go and lie down in a darkened room? Do I want to go out for the day? Do I want to go and meet a friend for coffee and chat some ideas through? You know, the change in my life has been astonishing. My health has got, my health is better. Generally, I've put a bit of weight on in lockdown, but haven't we all?
Yeah, indeed.
I'm so much happier than I was. But I can only do what I do now because of what I did before.
Absolutely.
And all the things I learned from that, good and bad, along the way. It's funny. When I was at Wickham Sound, I used to say to people, everything I've done in my life has led to this.
Yes.
And now I think everything I've done in my life, including that, has led to this.
Yeah. I get
that. And what I like to think is that this will see me through until I retire, until I keel over.
Yeah.
Because it just suits me perfectly. I have a great working relationship with Jonathan, the marvellous Mr. M. He works as well, and he works in an office next door to mine. So, we meet up at lunchtime and we have our lunch together, and then he goes back to his space and I come back to my space. It's just perfect. And what I'd like is for Buck's Breakfast to continue to grow.
Yes.
And it's on a great trajectory at the moment. So if that all continues in the right direction, then, I don't want anything else. I am a very happy bunny.
Love it. I love it. And isn't it, it's kind of gorgeous to be able to look at all of the things that you've done, all of those experiences, and see how they have fed into this moment, into this thing that you are able to do now. I mean, I think that in and of itself is just gold.
It is, and, it hasn't been a life or a career full of success. There have been some very considerable setbacks along the way, and things that haven't gone quite to plan that I've held, that have sort of held me down along the way, and now I see the benefit of those things. So here's a really good example. I talked at the beginning about how I'd been in the property business at the time of the buy-to-let boom.
Yes.
And the chap I was working for, this investor, said, it would be really good if you got some sort of financial accounting qualification. So I went into training to be a company secretary, and it was really interesting. It was a lot of detail, so it took me out of my comfort zone a bit. But there were lots of modules to that, and I passed loads of exams. But there were a couple of exams, law being one of them, that I couldn't pass it. I sat it 3 times and failed it 3 times. And so I carried that with me for years, for a decade, thinking I failed at trying to be a company secretary. But I didn't, because I passed 8 of the 9 exams.
There you go.
And now I use accounting, I use bookkeeping and strategy and marketing and all of those things, and I'm using them every day.
Yeah.
If I need law, I'll phone a lawyer.
Absolutely. Isn't that thing? You don't have to know every single thing,
No.
You don't need to, kind of know what you know, and yes, develop your skills and keep on learning and all of that good stuff, but don't bog yourself down with trying to be, the queen of every single thing. Why? There's always going to be somebody out there who can do that bit for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, love that.
Quality of her life.
So you've gone from being like this fully committed every day, every hour, doing so much and putting so much in, to still doing that, but in a much shorter day, and then having the rest of the day to spend with your loved ones, with your pets, of which I know you have many, and doing the other things that you love. And isn't that what life is for? Isn't that what living really looks like?
Yes, and, you know, I am very lucky to be able to do it. The Marvellous Mr. M works. He feeds me, he protects me, and all of those things, you know, and I am very conscious that not everybody has that luxury. So, you know, that's the first thing, to acknowledge that.
Yes.
But yes, and I think, you know, as you get older, for a long time I thought, I'm still on my way up, and was I trying to be a leader in our industry sector? Was I trying to be a name of some sort in our industry sector? And, you know, a long time I've struggled with that. And some projects went well and others didn't go so well. Do you know what? Now, I don't care about any of that anymore. When I started this project, I went through all my social media and I looked at all the different groups I was part of and all the emails I was getting, and I unsubscribed from loads of things and I left loads of groups, and just the difference of going through that was immediate.
Yes.
There were Facebook groups that I was in where the discussions would just turn into arguments, and it, you know, and it really brings you down. I don't think you realise the impact that has on you, even if you're just watching two other people having a wrangle. You don't realise the impact that has until you walk away from it.
Because you're soaking it in, you're soaking it all up.
Yeah. So, you know, that would be one of my top tips for anybody who's considering a career change, a change in life, is just to look through all of those things, all of that spam you get every day. Just unsubscribe from it. You know it's there. If you want it, you can go back to it later, but just have a bit of a cleanse. Because I tell you what, I don't know of anybody that wouldn't benefit.
I've done exactly the same thing. And it just gives headspace. For me, it's like, oh my goodness, the amount of headspace I win back from just simply reading some of the emails that I don't need to be reading. They're not serving any purpose. Another question that I want to just ask, because I think this is so important at this moment in time where lots of people have been made redundant, are potentially going to be made redundant still. This I think 2021 has got a lot yet to play out. What advice would you give around how to accept that that's what it is and make your next move, whether it's into another career or into business, whatever that might be?
I mean, you know, practicalities first. You've got to work out, you know, what income you need. What is the minimum income you can survive on, and sorting out your finances and just knowing where you are from that angle. It has got to be the first priority. And that's not my area of expertise. So, you know, go and talk to somebody who is. But in terms of, you know, direction and so on, if you can, do what you love. Because you may have been made redundant, but you might have been in a job that you were just doing because you fell into it, because it was convenient. You might not have lived to do that job, you know, and now is the time. And with technology these days, you can do whatever you want. You know, you can be retraining, you can do that online, you can pivot an existing skill and set up your own business in a field that you're familiar with. You know, there's so much you can do. There's so much opportunity now with all the apps and the technology that's available. But, you know, the most important thing is, and especially if you're middle young, as I like to call myself, you know, now is your time. Do what you love. If you want to, you know, if your hobby is, I don't know, going out into the middle of a field and painting landscapes, find a way to make that your your new career. You know, offer to hand paint backgrounds for people's websites, set up your own online gallery, do art training. I don't know. You know, there's so many different things you could do. I mean, it sounds so general to say that, but, you know, there's never been a better time. And if I think about my mum. My mum died when she was 54, and I'm only a few months away from turning 54 myself. And when I think of the life that I've got now, compared to what she was going through when she was my age, and all the jobs she'd done and the work she'd done, and she'd raised my brother and myself and all of that stuff, I think, my goodness, my life is so different to hers. And, you know, and the next generation, touch wood, hopefully will have it even better. We've yet to see how things are going to pan out, obviously.
Yes.
But, you know, now is the time of opportunity. And, you know, people often ask on forums, you know, when's the best time to start a new business? It's now. It's today.
Yeah.
Start making your notes today. Start, you know, thinking about what your new business is going to look like today. The most important thing for any business is identifying who your audience is. Who's going to buy your product? Who's going to sign up for your course? Who's going to listen to your program? And it's defining that. Think about it in these terms, actually. You know, I don't know, 25 years ago, we had 4 channels on the TV. And then Channel 5 came along and it was, wow, we've got 5 channels on the TV.
Yeah.
And then Sky TV came along. And suddenly we went from having 5 channels to 105 channels. And the impact of that on the size of audiences, on, you know, how many people different advertisers are going to reach. Yeah, you can still watch, I don't know, some of these big Saturday night shows on ITV who get huge viewing numbers.
Yes.
But if you're selling fishing tackle, you'd go on to, I don't know, the fishing channel where they're talking about fishing all day long, and you advertise there. That is your niche market. And I think that's where we are these days with the internet. You know, in whatever field you're in, there is a way to reach your niche market. So with Buck's Breakfast, you know, if you're selling the latest trainers which have been endorsed by some top 10 hip-hop star, Buck's Breakfast isn't the right station for you. But there's another station down the road that is appealing exactly to that audience.
Yes.
And, you know, that is the beauty of the digital age,
Absolutely.
in my opinion.
I completely agree. And I think it is, for me, understanding that redundancy is not the end. It's like the beginning. It's the beginning.
Yeah.
If you can get yourself to the opportunity mindset, amazing things can happen.
And there are plenty of people out there, you know, your good self in this as well, who are experts in helping you through that huge wave of feelings that you're going to go through, because you will.
Yes.
You'll be angry, you'll be frustrated, you'll be upset. You know, there's a period of grief. But with the right people around you, you can come through that. And then, you know, you might need a career coach or whatever to help you just analyse, particularly if you've got a family and financial commitments and so on. You know, you've got to make sure you've got all of those bases covered.
Yes.
And there are experts who can help you in all of those things and help you just whittle everything down to say, right, yeah, I could go and do this, or I could go and do this. What would make me the most happy?
So finally then, Pippa, if any of our listeners would like to find out more about you and about Buck's Breakfast, how do they find you?
So we are completely digital. So you find us online, bucksbreakfast.co.uk. We've got an Alexa skill and the links for that are on the website. And we're live only from 7 till 10 on Mondays to Fridays. But if you've missed an interview, then come back to the website because they're all there on Listen Again. And we're on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn as well, and Instagram.
Well, Pippa, I want to thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you sharing that journey, the story. It's been a joy and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been great to chat to you, Yvonne. Thank you for inviting me.